Welcome to the Unpacking It Live podcast. I'm Bryce Johnson. We're here for the next hour to unpack sports, faith, and life. Man, I'm happy to be here. It is March Madness time. The brackets are out. I love this time of year. Right before my allergies kick in, the springtime, we get some nice sunny weather and games all week long, all weekend long. And so today on the show, we will celebrate March Madness beginning and so much to discuss. Thanks so much for listening here on the podcast. If you're listening live on YouTube or Facebook, so glad to have you here and a part of the Unpacking It community of sports fans. And so be sure to subscribe on YouTube or anywhere else podcasts are found. Tonight is trivia night here at Unpacking It. It's virtual trivia night. So if you haven't registered for that, you can go to unpackingit.com/trivia. Tonight's theme, all about March Madness. So we're going to have a blast tonight from 8 to 9:15 Eastern, and be sure to register. It's free to play, but we do appreciate the donations. And so again, that's unpackingit.com/trivia. And then also we've got our bracket challenge taking place right now. And so you can go to unpackingit.com/March, and maybe we'll put the link in the comments as well. But would love for you to be a part of our bracket challenge. So for every $10 donation, you can put in your bracket and compete against me and the other guys here at Unpacking It. And speaking of the other guys, so a couple updates here on the show. So first off, Luke Heaton got married yesterday. So he's our social media director and a key part of the Unpacking It podcast. And so he is on his way to his honeymoon. I did get a text last night, and the wedding turned out great. And he sounded all excited. So very happy for Luke. And then also Corey Miller, he has now decided to shift his focus toward Giants for Christ, which is a ministry for athletes and coaches. And so we're thrilled for him, and he'll contribute at times to this Unpacking It podcast, but you won't see him here every week. But we're so thankful for his contributions to Unpacking It over these last few months. And it was fun to have him a part of things. And again, we wish him the best. Today, I am joined by Henry Bienamine. So you probably see him down in the corner. You're like, wait, who is that guy? What's he doing on the show? So Henry is with us today. He is our producer coming to us from Connecticut at iHeart Radio Studios up in Connecticut. So Henry, thanks for being with us today, and thanks for helping out and pinch hitting while Luke is on his honeymoon. Henry, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Bryce. Thanks for letting me hang out with you today. First and foremost, Luke, congratulations to you and your new bride. If you're watching, or if you're watching this on the replay, hopefully you're not watching this anytime
Hopefully
soon.
He's not watching.
But I'm very thankful. I'm very privileged to be with you, Bryce. And I'm just as excited as March Madness as you are, and I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are.
Absolutely, man. We're fired up. So before we jump in, let me ask you this. Do you need to get your own health insurance? Well, go to healthmarketgenius.com. Know your options, healthmarketgenius.com. Support them as they support us. So each week, we always start off with, I'm convinced. And so we will start there. We'll actually hear from Henry as well. And we want you to jump in and offer your take as well here on this Monday. What are you convinced of today in the world of sports? We'll probably, maybe focus on March Madness a little bit, but here I got two for you today. So I'll start with March Madness. I'm convinced it is absolutely unbelievable and incredible to see my App State Mountaineers on this year's bracket. So they surprised everybody, won the Sun Belt Conference tournament, and now they get to play in the first four games, which is, I don't know. I'm a little torn about the fact that is a part of the tournament. However, this year, I'm all in. I can't wait. Thursday night, let's go. Cheering on my Mountaineers, and I'm wearing my App State yellow today. I used to wear this when I broadcast the games when I was up at App State as a student. So it was a ton of fun doing the play-by-play for the basketball team and the football team. And at the time, the basketball team was actually pretty good, but never really sniffed winning the at the time the SoCon tournament. Because Davidson was always in there. So Steph Curry, those were the years that I was in college. And so Davidson, I think they won it every year. Maybe one time they didn't, but they always did that. So anyway, so I'm fired up. I'm convinced that App State will be competitive, but I'm not sure I'm going to guarantee any wins, because here's the deal. Why didn't the committee put App State up against Michigan? Michigan was a 1 seed. They're going to be playing, the winner of the play-in game. Why would the committee not do this? We wanted to see it, the connection between App State and Michigan. Let's keep it going. Why? Committee? Why? Now, listen, I'm not convinced that App would have beat Michigan on the basketball court this year, but it was possible. Could have happened. But at least create a little intrigue. Make Michigan fans kind of nervous all this week, because they would have been thinking, oh, great, we got to take on the Mountaineers. But for the committee to remove that storyline, a little weak. Come on, committee. You're better than that. Because normally they like those storylines. So anyway, they decided to go away from that this year, but that's unfortunate. Here's what I'm also convinced of, going outside of basketball for a moment. I'm convinced that daylight savings time is the worst. And it's the worst when you're the father of a baby, an 18-month-old, 19-month-old now. And so today, it was actually a blessing, because she slept in. And so, she didn't get up to like 8:30, which was nice. And I was able to get some stuff done this morning. But normally that's my time, hanging out with little Maddie in the morning. And so, she kind of got up at her normal time, which is normally 7:30. But the craziness and the confusion of the time, and my wife Jody and I trying to figure out, okay, so when is she going to sleep and nap and eat? And now she's all thrown off, and it takes, granted, it only takes a few days to kind of recalibrate a little bit, but in the meantime, it just throws everything off. And when you're in survival mode and you're trying to keep your daughter on schedule, what is the deal with the spring forward, and it messes you up, and then you lose an hour. And Jody and I actually we had a nice weekend because Jody's parents watched Maddie on Saturday night. But then we lose an hour. We lost an hour. We get this one big night alone, and then we lose an hour because of daylight savings time. Doesn't seem right. So that's what I'm convinced of. We got to figure out an answer, a solution to just keeping the same time all year long. Is that fair? Henry, what do you think, and what are you convinced of today?
Now, as a father myself, I have older children, my 3 older children. My son, who's in the Army, he's in his mid-20s. My daughter is turning 21 in June, and my youngest son, who's going to turn 13. So I can definitely relate when I had to have those schedules, and each of them were so different. One of them slept through the night, one of them didn't, and the last one didn't know what he or she wanted to do. So I can definitely relate to the daylight savings. And just when you think you've gotten used to it, all of a sudden now you get that hour taken away from you. Now your body has to get readjusted. You got to make sure that you're not late for work, or if you're not late for that date or anything like that. So it's definitely tiring, and once the seasons change, that's when our body has to readjust. But
that's right.
What I'm convinced about is a couple of things. Keeping it here in Connecticut. Connecticut actually has 3 teams in the tournament. On the women's side, of course, we have the UConn women's team, who will most likely be the number 1 overall seed when the selection show comes out tonight. And the other 2 teams are, of course, the UConn men's team, who got into as an at-large as a 7th seed, as well as the University of Hartford, who got in by winning the America East the conference for the first time. And their victory, their reward for that victory is, of course, they get number 1 seeded Baylor, which leads me to say I'm convinced that the Hartford Hawks are going to lose by no less than 20.
Ooh, that's tough. That's a tough way to start.
No less than 20 points, because Baylor is really nipping at the heels of Gonzaga. And as much as I'd love to be an idealist and say Hartford could pull off the upset, they're really not pulling off the upset. They're just glad to be there. They're just glad to be in Indiana. So Hartford Hawks, take all the time you need. Go enjoy the experience of Indianapolis, and then hit the bricks as Baylor gets on you and takes you out in the first round.
Oh man, so no hope and faith in the Hartford team. So there you go. So that's cool though. A couple teams from Connecticut though. That's always a big deal for sure because we always think about that here in North Carolina. You know how many teams get in, and this year, of course, Duke not in the field. So we'll have to get into that a little bit today. That's one of the unique storylines, and just looking at the bracket and some of the the top teams that are in the mix. It's just a different year to think that Gonzaga is the number one team, a former Cinderella team, is going in as the clear-cut favorite. That's wild. And then to think, like Illinois. Remember years ago with Darren Williams, they had a good team and it went up against UNC. Now they're back in the mix. And then to have Michigan as one of the top teams with their former player from the Fab Five as the head coach. What a fascinating story. And then for Georgetown to get into the tournament after winning the Big East tournament, Georgetown's meant to be in March Madness. I love when they're a part of things. And their leader is Patrick Ewing. And so what a legend he is. And so to see them in the mix, it's great. And so here are some of the things that we want to get into today and would love for you as you're listening to chime in and let us know your thoughts. What is your favorite Cinderella team from the past? What is your favorite buzzer beater from the past? Would love to know some feedback on that, and I'll share mine in just a little bit. And then also I'll talk about how sometimes the boring pick is the right pick when filling out your brackets. And then also I'll start this before we jump into to unpack this. I am so excited about March Madness. I absolutely love the whole build up, filling out brackets to then, opening day and back-to-back games. And then, weekend after weekend. The schedule change this year is different because normally, we're used to that Thursday start kind of at noon. And so now the first 4 games, we've got like 8 games or whatever, 8 teams, 4 games on Thursday night. So that will be unique. And then Friday will be the official start, with Saturday also being a big day, which is kind of nice. So normally we're kind of taking 2 work days to fill in all the games. Now we get that Saturday game. But now we also have that Monday, which is the kind of the round 2 of games, which is very unique this year. So what's that going to be like? So I'm fascinated by the schedule. And then I'll also say that as excited as I am this year about March Madness and kind of the uncertainty of it all, and wondering, okay, how is COVID going to affect things? I will say and admit that the college basketball regular season wasn't very intriguing to me. And it's amazing that the level of excitement that I now have compared to the regular season is unlike any other sport. Because in the NFL, in many ways, I love the regular season as much, if not maybe more, than the playoffs, because I'm playing fantasy football and kind of the Red Zone channel. It's all these games every Sunday. And so I love the regular season in the NFL. I like watching all the teams. I love watching my Panthers, but love watching all the teams. And even in the, I guess the NBA, probably the playoffs are better. But college football, oftentimes the regular season is better than, kind of the bowl season, especially in recent years. But when it comes to college basketball, the regular season, it's been kind of watered down in recent years. It just didn't seem like this year had as many stars to draw us in to kind of watch teams that weren't our favorite school. And then, of course, for me, Duke not be good soured the season as well. And so it's just this flip switches, though. Like, I don't even care what teams are in or who the players are, because what ends up happening every year during the tournament, stars become stars. Like guys that we never knew were anything. Like, who knew who Steph Curry was years ago before Davidson went on a magical run? And who knew Bryce Drew before the upset that Valpo had and the buzzer beater that Bryce Drew hit, which still is my favorite buzzer beater. And so that's what makes this so special. It's the uncertainty. It's not that we're tuning in for the stars in the tournament. There are a few, and we'll talk about some of those guys that we kind of got to keep an eye out for because they're expected to be top picks in the NBA. But usually it's guys that come out of the woodwork. It's surprise guys that now all of a sudden we go, ooh, who's this? This guy's got some game. And then we wonder, okay, are they going to keep moving on in the tournament? Well, now this guy is on the radar of GMs and scouts in the NBA. And then the other side of me goes, wait. Sometimes we jump the gun and we start thinking about how this player projects onto the next level, but we just need to enjoy him for the great college player that he is and the standout that he is right now and for the next few weeks. And so let's soak in and enjoy some of these players from the smaller schools that will emerge and some of the amazing plays that we're about to see in the coming weeks. So again, I'm fired up. Want to know your thoughts. How do you think about the bracket? Any surprises on the bracket? What do you maybe struggling the most to decide on who to pick? And so also make sure you join our bracket pool, unpackingit.com/March. But let's jump into Unpack This. And so here at Unpacking It, we love talking faith and life and using sports as an opportunity to parallel the Bible and what we experience as followers of Jesus and as those that are wondering and questioning and pursuing a faith journey as well. And so we use sports to kind of unpack and look into what the Bible says about key issues in life. And so today, with brackets on our mind, I want to talk about the concept of having a bracket of integrity versus filling out multiple brackets. So the caveat to this conversation is when you enter our bracket challenge, you can fill out as many brackets as you want because every $10 donation gets you a bracket entry. You support Unpacking It, and you increase your chances for winning some awesome prizes. So we got the gift card to Amazon, some Unpacking It gear. You'll actually, if you win the whole thing, we'll put you on the show. So we'll interview you here on the Unpacking It podcast live. So that'll be a ton of fun for whoever wins the tournament bracket. But here's the deal. So Henry, I am a believer that you should only have one bracket that you're allowed to talk about. Now, I understand filling out multiple ones when you're entering pools and contests and all that sort of thing. However, when you're interacting with other people and hopefully watching games and texting people and talking about, we don't have the water coolers anymore, but that mentality of you're catching up with people at work and at church and all that sort of thing. And you say, hey, how's your bracket? The idea that you get to have 5 different brackets and say, oh, yeah. I picked Loyola. I got that upset. Oh, yeah, George Mason, all over it. VCU. Oh, yeah, I got it. Now, you may have picked one of those in each of your brackets, but you didn't get them all in one bracket, right? And then, who do you think is going to win it all? Well, it depends on who you're talking to. So sometimes, you go, yeah, I'm going to go Gonzaga on this bracket. So at work, you're all in on Gonzaga. But then the bracket with your high school buddies, it's Michigan. Oh, I've got Michigan. So whenever one of those teams does it, you're claiming that you got it right and all that sort of thing. So for me, I like to just have one that I'm focused on throughout the tournament. I like to print it out and have handwritten in pen, no pencil, but handwrite the bracket and then cross out or highlight throughout the tournament. And so that's the way that I like to have it. And so how does this parallel to our own lives? Oftentimes we are different depending on who we're around. And we may say that we have certain convictions, just like, you talk about the bracket and you're like, no, I really think that App State is going to pull the upset, or, I really think that Michigan's going down early, or no, I think Gonzaga's way overrated. Well, that's your conviction. And that should be your conviction kind of across the board. And so when we live life and when we claim to be followers of Jesus, then our integrity and our character matters. It matters wherever we are, whoever we're with. It's not just turn it on Sunday and then we're different at work on Monday. And then when we're hanging out with our buddies and watching games, we let certain things slide and we become, almost a different person. And so if the convictions are there and it's in our heart and we desire to do God's will and to pursue after the character of Jesus and to represent him in all areas of our life, we've got to operate with this mentality of having a bracket of integrity. That Bryce, man of integrity, not, I got my little bracket over here, my little bracket over here. I'm this way over here, that way over there. Consistency and integrity and being a true, person of character, whether people are around. How many of us let stuff slide when it's just, nobody can see that. I'm on my own. Nobody knows what I'm saying or thinking or doing. And so that comes down to integrity. Are we living with integrity? So that's the encouragement. That's the challenge for us today. And let me read this simple verse for us today in Proverbs 10:9. It says, people with integrity walk safely, but those who follow crooked paths will be exposed. And the reality is eventually the multi convictions or whatever, they get revealed. That if you say you're one way and you act a different way, eventually that is revealed. And eventually people figure out your bracket. They go, wait a second, you didn't have that great bracket. You're mixing together 5 different brackets and it makes it seem like you have the perfect bracket. No, what is your bracket of integrity and who we are and who are we consistently all the time? Now, of course, our personality might change a little bit. Like when you're hanging out with your mom versus your wife or your daughter or your friends, you're going to have some slight, interests or what you talk about. But as far as who you are at the core and what you represent and your identity being in Christ and seeking integrity and character, that's across the board, no matter where we are and who we're with. Now, it's hard. It is. And thankfully we have God's grace. And so we rest in his grace and we're not going to be perfect in that way. But I think identifying, okay, where are the areas where maybe I'm lacking integrity and asking God to convict us of those things and to ask him to give us the strength and the acknowledgement of, hey, these are the areas that we got to make some tweaks and to trust him to change us from the inside out. So Henry, that's what we can unpack today. Do you have anything to add to the bracket of integrity?
You make very good points, Bryce. And another scripture along with the Proverbs scripture that I lean to is James chapter 1, where it says a double-minded person is unstable in all of their ways. And so now when you have your brackets, people love to say, I have this bracket and then I have this bracket and then I have this bracket. So that way they can seem like they know what they're doing. They seem like they have the up and up and they seem like they have it all together. Just like in our walk, we may seem like we all have it together when we're here, when we're at work, we seem like we all have it together. When we're at home, we seem like we all have it together. But in reality, what we're doing is dividing our attention. We're dividing our attention between the world and between Christ. And what we need to do is we need to have one focus, one mind, one spirit, and one connection. And so it means that much more when you have that single relationship with Christ, just as it means that much more when you have that one bracket and you put everything you have into one bracket. And so Amen. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, at least you put everything into it. And the same thing with Christ. If you put all of your time and all of your energy, knowing the fact that God is before you in every step of the way, you really can't go wrong.
Amen. Amen. Well, there you go. That's what we're unpacking today. We'd love to know your thoughts as you're listening. How do you feel about the bracket of integrity? Talking about brackets, but even in your own life. We'd love to know your thoughts. You can always email me as well, Bryce@unpackingit.com. And so send your comments in. What are your favorite Cinderella teams from over the years? Favorite buzzer beaters over the years? And who's your Cinderella that you're counting on this year? Who's going to do it? Who's going to be the special team? And so heading into kind of looking at the bracket, I've got to even go back to last year because I was prepared last year to go with Gonzaga to win the whole thing. And so I'm going to stick by that this year. And what's kind of a bummer about it is that that's not the fun pick. Gonzaga, everybody's picking. Is it Gonzaga? We'll go with Gonzaga, the Zags, right? I still never know how to pronounce it. But after all these years, you'd think we'd finally get that down, but I still don't. But Gonzaga, to me, is the clear favorite. They're undefeated, and I want to see it happen. I want to see them go undefeated the entire way. And it's a lot of pressure. We've seen it over the years. There have been multiple teams that have gone into the tournament undefeated, and they fall sometimes early, and sometimes they make it to the Final Four, even the championship game, before going down. But let's see if they can do it. In a crazy year like this, let's see them do it. I think they've been building toward this. They're a consistent team year after year. We always downplay, they don't play a tough enough schedule. They've got good players. They got two guys that are expected to go early in the NBA draft. And so I think they've got what it takes. I really do. And I will say this. I think if it's going to be a favorite, one of the top teams, it's going to be Gonzaga. The secondary kind of prediction that I have is that it's going to be somebody so random, some team that nobody's expecting. They're going to be the team to win it all. I don't think it's going to be like another number one team. If it's a number one team, it's going to be Gonzaga. Otherwise, it's going to be a 10 seed or some crazy team that people downplayed. Maybe a team that lost in their conference tournament that everybody kind of wrote off, but they're still a really good team, and then they're going to make a run. So that's what I'll go with. And another team that I kind of like this year, Shaka Smart's Texas team. I think they could make a deep run. So I'll keep an eye on Texas this year. And speaking of Shaka Smart, what's interesting is when you see the bracket and you start to recognize some of the previous Cinderella teams, like Loyola, they're back in the mix. Now we remember the special season that they had a couple years ago, and they were America's team. Well, they're not surprising anybody this time around. So it's one of those things where now they've got some experience. And so are they the type of team that can turn the corner and be like, remember Butler a couple years ago, where they all of a sudden became a consistent team? They surprised some people early on, and then they became a consistent team. And then, Gonzaga was one of those teams for many years where, okay, they're getting into the tournament, maybe a little upset here, a little upset there, but then they were consistent. So is Loyola that type of team where they're building something? They've been able to keep their head coach. Or are they the classic team where everybody's going to pick Loyola again, thinking, oh, I'm not going to pick against them because they hurt me a few years ago, or are they going to actually let you down? So when I think of Shaka Smart, VCU, they were another one of those teams when he was coaching there that became that regular team that could pull the upset. They became a legit, year in, year out competitive team in the tournament, which was impressive. And so who is that team this year? Or is it more of the idea that, you go with Loyola just because they did it a couple years ago? They're not going to do it again. They're not going to do it again. Henry, what is your favorite Cinderella team from previous years, and or your favorite buzzer beater from over the years?
I think my favorite team that I can remember, I don't know if it was a buzzer beater. Well, first let me say this: my favorite team, probably my favorite Cinderella team, has to be Butler. And Butler weren't even picked. As a matter of fact, one of the championship games ended with them on a half-court heave, and it literally rimmed out. And I was like, he's actually gonna hit this thing. Oh, and it rimmed out. I was like, oh my God, what if that went in?
I know.
And just the fact, and not only did they make it back-to-back years, if I remember correctly. They made it back-to-back years. And so we think of Butler and we think of them as this Cinderella, when in actuality, they really are a good program. And
no question.
So, and my other team, keeping it here in Connecticut, it's not a buzzer beater per se, but my favorite moment is the Kemba Walker year, where Kemba literally carried UConn right to the finals. And so he literally did everything that he possibly could. And UConn just kind of jumped on his back. The 6-foot dynamo jumped on his back and took him right to the Final Four. And so as a Connecticut fan, that's what I'll remember. And one other thing, if I had to pick a Cinderella and from my hometown, because I'm a hometown kid, it would probably be Georgetown, because Coach Patrick Ewing is the first person in NCAA history to win the Big East, both as a player and the coach for the same team. So if I had to pick one team to root for, it'd be Georgetown.
Yeah, they're a likable team, and I think with Patrick Ewing, he was actually here in Charlotte coaching the Bobcats for a number of years, and really he earned a head coaching opportunity. Meaning he'd been an assistant, he was working hard, and you know, the idea that sometimes NBA guys they leverage their name and they jump right into a head coaching job, whether in the NBA or in college basketball. Derek Fisher comes to mind, Jason Kidd comes to mind, Steve Nash comes to mind. But guys like Patrick Ewing who have earned that, at least from a longevity standpoint, and then to go back to his alma mater and do well, really cool. Same with Juwan Howard. He was down in Miami coaching LeBron and D-Wade and those guys, and really earned that opportunity at Michigan. And so it's great to see him have success there, even though we got to keep him from fighting with the coaches. But other than that, he's doing really well. And so my favorite buzzer beater is Bryce Drew. And so my mom actually went to Valpo, and so I had a connection to Valpo anyway. And then, of course, we share the same first name. And then years ago, I actually interviewed Bryce Drew when I was up at App State. And so him being kind enough to join me as a student doing a radio show in college, that was really cool. And I've had him on Unpacking It since. And so that's my guy. So now he's over at Grand Canyon. So that's the team I'm hoping will be the Cinderella this year. I'm pulling hard for him. And this is his first year because remember, he was at Valpo. He was the head coach there. So another cool story for him to go back to Valpo. He was doing a nice job there. Then he got that job at Vanderbilt. It didn't work out. I don't know the full story there. They ended up going with Jerry Stackhouse, who's there now. And so that was kind of a bummer to see him not really work out there. But now to get Grand Canyon into the tournament, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And so that's my favorite buzzer beater. I mean, that's such a great play because the other guy caught it and then passed to him and he hit the three for the win. And that still hangs on. Of course, the Christian Laettner. I got Christian Laettner hanging on the rafters here in the studio. That was a great, of course, against Kentucky. Grant Hill's throw on that one was the key to that. And then as far as great Cinderella runs, again, I got Steph Curry on the wall, but that Davidson run was so thrilling. I mean, game after game, the numbers that Steph Curry was putting up and the way that he captured fans during that run, and to think who he became in the NBA too, where it all began at this little school, Davidson, and to think that his dad, played in the NBA, yet Steph Curry was overlooked and Virginia Tech didn't even want him. And then he goes to Davidson and puts them on the map. And gosh, I wanted to see them go even further, but that was the best run. I really enjoyed that. Unfortunately, a lot of the upsets over the years, some of the big Cinderella teams, they've knocked out Duke. So I haven't been as excited about some of those, Lehigh and VCU teams, Mercer and you name it. Duke has lost to them. So that's part of the deal being a Duke fan. You get the championships, but then you get some of those early upsets as well. But keep your comments coming in. Who are your favorite upset teams over the years? Kind of Cinderella teams. Would love to know your thoughts. It looks like Aaron, he likes Liberty making a run this year. Liberty's building a program. They're showing up on another bracket again this year. So we'll see what they can do. All right. So the other question today, what is your favorite round going into the tournament? What is your favorite round? Is it all about the Final Four? Is it all about the Elite Eight? For me, I love the first round and I love the Elite Eight. To me, sometimes the Sweet 16, it gets the Cinderella team that they've got hot for a weekend, but they aren't good enough to get to another weekend. And so then a lot of blowouts in the Sweet 16. I get nervous about the blowouts in the Sweet 16. And then when you get to the Elite Eight, those are just great teams. Those are tight matchups. Everybody's fighting for the Final Four. To me, that's always my favorite round. And then I love the first, the first day, especially because it's just the craziness and what's going to happen. And back-to-back games. I'll get 3 TVs going, which is tough because I have 3 TVs, but there's going to be 4 networks carrying the games. So I'm gonna have to work the clicker a little bit. Usually there's the 116 game. Normally, now we gotta have a little bit of a heads up with that because App's gonna be a 16th seed this year. But normally that one gets over pretty quick. The top seed jumps out to a 20-5 lead, and that game ends quickly. But I'll be bouncing around between those 3 TVs. So I can't wait to watch the first round. But Henry, for you, what's your favorite round of the tournament?
I think my favorite round is the first 4 exactly, because they're just excited just to be there.
The first 4?
The first 4. The first 4.
Wow.
Because those are the teams that are just excited to be there. You get to see the excitement on their faces. You get to see them looking around and in awe and wonder. They're like, you know what? We actually made it here. They don't care about the fact that some might say they're not really in the tournament, but they're there. And they get the night all to themselves. Like, for example, I'm going to pick your Appalachian State Mountaineers. They're going to be on True TV at 8:40. So for that time,
jokers.
Exactly. But for that time, for that particular moment, the eyes of the college basketball world are on these guys and these guys only. Nobody's worried about the Gonzagas, the Baylors, whether Virginia's going to get in. It's on these guys right here. They get a night sort of all to themselves. And just to see the excitement on their faces to say, all eyes are on us. And then in the first 4, you might find that one guy that will just run through the tournament, because once you get in there, as you well know, once you get in there, anything's possible.
Absolutely. You better believe it. That's why we love it. And so I can't believe, normally I blow off the first 4. So of course, with that being in it, I'll keep an eye on it. And the fact that UCLA and Michigan State, I mean, they're in the mix for that first 4. That's very interesting. 2 teams that have had, great March Madness success over the years. And the fact that UCLA has been so bad. So when I was growing up, like early on, like falling in love with college basketball, and I used to record on VHS because I'd have to go to bed, and so I'd have to watch it the next day. So I still have those tapes, actually. These were UCLA teams. The O'Bannon brothers, Tyus Edney, Cameron Dollar, Bailey, I can't think of his first name, Toby Bailey. Man, those are great UCLA teams. And the fact that they're just kind of irrelevant, at least in the last couple of years, it's just every couple of years they're like they're relevant and then they fade off. They're relevant and then they fade off. To me, you got to have UCLA in the mix. They're such a storied program. John Wooden, of course. So they're in the first 4. So I guess App State's got good company being a part of that first 4. So I'll give it to them. All right. So if you're listening, what is your favorite round of the tournament? And it looks like Henry's our fill-in producer today. Henry, the current topic, Deshaun Watson to the Panthers. You want me to talk Deshaun to the Panthers? What are we doing here?
Deshaun to the Panthers. Wow.
You've got the graphic. You've got the graphic on the screen. What are we doing here?
Oh my God.
Henry's filling in, and now we're talking Deshaun Watson to the Panthers. Listen, I'm fine talking about it. We can go back there. I'm still holding out hope. I'm seeing some of the headlines. We're still seeing a little rumblings that Deshaun is intrigued by the Panthers option. But Henry, we're talking March Madness. We're talking brackets today. We'll get to some. Now we're talking athletes on politics. We're not talking politics today. We're talking March Madness.
Well, we got to cover all of our bases, Bryce. We have to be about sports, faith, and life.
There you go. You're throwing in all sorts of different topics here. So I don't know what's going on the back end here, but I appreciate Henry's filling in. For those of you tuning in, Henry's filling in. Luke's on his honeymoon, and so Henry is kind enough to fill in, and I'm giving him a hard time. For messing up the graphics, but anyway, we're talking March Madness today, and here's another interesting topic that I find very intriguing. Rick Pitino is coaching college basketball again. What do we call him? Disgraced coach who's just kind of had a lot of controversy throughout his career. He has taken Iona to the NCAA tournament. Iona TV and a couch. But Iona, it's just funny that this is where he landed, and that he's able to get them into the tournament. This is his 5th team that he's taken to the tournament. And I started thinking, I go, how impressive is that? And how sad is that? Because if you're a coach and you've gone from program to program and have had success everywhere you've gone, it obviously shows that you can coach. And it really doesn't even matter who the players are. It's not like he's recruiting big time guys at Iona. He's maximizing the players that were there. And it's not like he's had time to even build a program. This is his first or second year. And so last year was such a blur, but what is it? His first or second year, but he's taken them so quickly to the tournament. And so I think it's sad for him that he'll go down as one of the great coaches, and we'll mention him in the mix, but because he wasn't at one program for long enough he had a great run at Kentucky, and he was okay at Louisville. He won a championship at Louisville, but it just doesn't carry the same weight when you think about Jim Boeheim, Coach K, Dean Smith, John Wooden, these guys that built programs and were there for almost their entire careers. Coach K started at Army, but that wasn't really a spot that you have a long career at. And so that's why I love Mark Few. I love that Mark Few has stayed at Gonzaga, that he's turned down all these opportunities over the years to remain at Gonzaga. And he could have gone, he could have left, he could have bounced around and taken the next job. But he found a spot and has built them into a powerhouse, and now has a chance to win a national championship at a smaller school like Gonzaga. I love that. And so as much as I'll give a little credit to Rick Pitino for getting his team in 5 different teams, but man, it's kind of sad. I think it's a little sad. So where do you come out on that? If you're listening, is it more on the impressive side when a coach, even Tubby Smith's done it, I think 5 different teams. Lon Kruger's another guy. But to me, those guys aren't legends. Sometimes they've failed at different spots. Lon Kruger, I think, went to the NBA at one point. To me, I always go back to the guys that stuck it out at one school. And then I think from another standpoint, Buzz Williams is one of my favorite coaches in college basketball. And Luke, who actually went to Texas A&M, he's not with us today, but Buzz Williams took the job at Texas A&M. We'll give him time to build that program. But I think Buzz could be a great head coach. And maybe this will finally be his spot. But he was at Marquette. Then he was at Virginia Tech. And he's just kind of bounced around. And I think he misses out because of the movement. I like the longevity. I really do. And so that's what I kind of stick to as I'm looking at head coaches. And so as we head into the tournament and you look at your bracket, how much weight do you put on who the head coach is? How important is who's the head coach when you're making your picks? And then when your favorite college basketball team goes out, how do you determine who you root for? Do you go Cinderellas? Do you root for other teams that are in the same conference as your favorite school? Or do you just root for Cinderellas and just kind of root for upsets? Or is it all about your bracket and you're just rooting to be right? So here's where I come out on this. I do not root for other conference teams. So I'm Duke. I'm not rooting for UNC. I'm not rooting for NC State. I'm not rooting for these other schools. However, like this year, I will root for Florida State because I like Leonard Hamilton. And I think Florida State can make a run this year. I like Tony Bennett. He's been a guest on Unpacking It. So I do root for Virginia, but not because Virginia is in the ACC. So I'm not a conference guy, even though I know some people are. And then I mainly root for coaches because the players change all the time. And let's face it, half the time we don't even know who the big stars are. And like I said earlier, we will learn this year and the star players will be revealed throughout the tournament. And then maybe you latch onto a guy, you're like, oh yeah, I really like this guy. Then you start pulling for that team. But for me, I like to see coaches coaches that I trust. When I'm looking at my bracket, I go, yeah, this guy's a good tournament coach. It may not do it every year, but chances are he's trustworthy and he's going to make his team competitive in position. So who do you root for besides your favorite team? And so, Henry, I don't even know who your favorite college team is. I guess Connecticut. Who do you pull for? And then if they go out, who do you go with?
Well, my favorite, if I had to go college, my favorite team actually is St. John's, because that's where Mark Jackson came from, out of Queens, New York. But for this day and age, for this tournament, yes, it's definitely UConn. I've always rooted for UConn, especially back with the Ray Allen days and, like we mentioned, the Kemba Walker days. But if UConn should get eliminated, then the team I'm going to be rooting for, well, again, with New York ties, is Georgetown, with my ties with Patrick Ewing.
There you go. All right. Well, no, that's fair. So that's, kind of more the, who the coach is. So that's always a key factor for me. And for a moment, let me talk about Duke being out, because this is a big deal. And for Duke and Kentucky to both be out in the same year, first time since like the 70s, I think we missed something, because it's like I was saying with UCLA, it's nice to have the blue bloods in the mix. And it's fun for the tournament when those teams go down and they get upset, and it's just great. Now, if Illinois goes down early, is that really a big upset? I don't think so. Like maybe by a seeding standpoint, and Illinois has been good this year, and I feel like they're actually positioned, it sounds like, to make a deep run. But if they get upset, who cares? But when Kentucky or Duke, they go down, it's a huge deal. Not to mention they're always loaded with future NBA players, so they're fun to watch. So we lose that this year with them being out. With that said, I hope this is a wonderful wake-up call for both of these teams, because I am on the side that I don't want teams loading up with a bunch of one-and-done players. If guys are so focused on going to the NBA, just let them go to the NBA. I don't think that's smart for those guys, because I think ultimately they're not ready and it takes so many years to develop. And I think about all the guys from Duke that have left early that have no business being in the NBA, or they weren't ready and they fizzled out. And, maybe by year 5 or 6, they become a role player. But they shouldn't have left early. Do you guys remember that Slavik Randolph left early? So yeah, there you go. So anyway, that was one of the craziest things. I couldn't believe it, but I want to see Duke and Kentucky change their strategy a little bit. I want them to load up with players that can stick around for multiple years and build their programs again. Not this recycling of players. And I do think it speaks a lot to this year too, that because it was a tough year mentally for teams, the start and stop, having to do all the testing, the freshmen, they weren't ready to handle that. It was a big enough deal to go off to college. It's a whole new level of talent, basketball wise, but just life is hard when you make that step from high school to college. And then you throw in everything that happened with COVID. The freshman players and even the talented players, I don't think they handled it as well as what we're seeing. A team like Gonzaga, filled with veterans, filled with older players, and they were able to handle it, and they played well. And I think too, they're probably the level of maturity does change from freshman year to senior year, where you're probably more likely to follow the protocols and be able to respond accordingly. So that's what it speaks to this year, that we're going to see the teams that end up in the Final Four this year in particular. We've already seen the trend anyway, but they're going to be upperclassmen, veteran players, veteran coaches. They're the ones that can handle the mental, struggle that this tournament will be. Maybe they take away some of the traveling because everybody's going to be there in Indiana, so that's kind of nice. But all the testing and we're going to see a couple teams probably, get the negative test and not be able to play. So how's that going to affect things? It's going to be fascinating to see. But good for, some of these programs that have been recruiting guys to play college basketball, not just like John Calipari recruiting guys to come showcase their talent so they can be a top 10 pick. Why is college basketball about that? Like, I understand that yeah, Zion coming to Duke absolutely elevated his awareness and his stock, and people tuned in to see him, and they were amazed by what he was able to do at Duke, and he's a superstar in the NBA. But is that what we want college basketball to be? Just a showcase? No, we want college basketball. College basketball is such a great sport. It's such a great game. Let's let college basketball be college basketball. And so Duke and Kentucky, learn from this. Learn from this. Get guys, go back to some of those players that you had in years past. Duke, Nolan Smith, Kyle Singler, John Shire. Let's get those guys back. Let's bring them back. Shane Battier, 4 years, baby. JJ Redick. Those are the Dukies we love. All right. Let me know your thoughts. Leave your comments in the comments section. And you can always email me, Bryce at unpackingit.com. Henry, anything from the chat that I need to be aware of? I've been going strong. Catch me up on what some of the listeners are saying.
A couple of things that stood out, and as I come up and join you here, a couple of the things that stood out during what you were going through here. We have Aaron who talks about, I pull for all of the upsets. It's about the little guy, David versus Goliath. And that's partly one of the reasons why we watch March Madness. We want to see who's going to be that Butler, who's going to be, as a matter of fact, that Gonzaga when they were the little engine that could, and now that they've grown to this major powerhouse. Daniel talks about he typically pulls for ACC teams unless it's Duke or State. So
must be a Tar Heel fan.
He's probably a Tar Heel. You were talking about coaching. Daniel also chimed in with well, you mentioned Tubby Smith. He says Tubby Smith is still coaching up here at High Point. So,
gosh, to go from Kentucky and winning a championship to nothing. No offense to High Point, but not a basketball powerhouse. I hate that for Tubby, but he's had a great career. He's bounced around, and again, he's taken a bunch of teams to the tournament, but he just won't go down as a legend like Mark Few will by staying at Gonzaga. So that's, and part of that, Tubby, things didn't work out at certain situations as well. And so, sometimes guys leave because they choose to, other times it just doesn't work out. But man, if you can just find a spot, stick there. It's the best. I just love that when coaches do that. But they chase, sometimes they chase the money and different opportunities. But what's crazy about the tournament every year too is that players become big time draft picks based on how they play in the tournament. Their stock rises through the roof based on how they play. And then coaches, 2 wins in the tournament can get you paid at another school. I mean, how crazy is that? That we see coaches out of nowhere, Florida Gulf Coast, and then you're ending up at USC. It's USC Southern Cal. Those are crazy scenarios, and we see that every year. So who will that team be this year? Who will that coach be? And then what players will come out of nowhere? And now all of a sudden they'll become household names for history of the tournament, but then also going on and getting picked in the draft. So it's going to be fun to see. So those are my thoughts on March Madness today. Appreciate everybody chiming in on the brackets. Again, we've got a bracket challenge taking place here at Unpacking It. And so go to unpackingit.com/March and would love for you to participate in our bracket challenge. And so $10 gets you one bracket. Earlier, we talked about the bracket of integrity. For this, throw in some multiple brackets and support Unpacking It. We're good with that. We're good with that. But then you only get one bracket to talk about and brag about to your friends. That's the mentality behind the bracket of integrity. Stick to your convictions during March Madness and the convictions that you have in life as we follow Jesus. And then also tonight is trivia night here at Unpacking It. Test your March Madness trivia. We're going to have a blast looking back at the history and some of the record holders, some of the upsets, some of the great coaches. It's free to play. Go to unpackingit.com/trivia and would love for you to participate in that. Kyle here at Unpacking It, he's the one that put together the questions, and I did a little run through. I did okay. Missed a few. I actually missed 2 questions about Duke, which was shocking. It was almost like I overthought it. I don't know why it happened, but I missed them. So, but it'll be fun tonight. So hope to see everybody there, and we'll have a good time. Two quick NFL thoughts before we get out of here, and kind of two big, pretty big storylines. First, Drew Brees officially retiring from the New Orleans Saints. As a Panthers fan, I wish you goodbye. See you later. Glad the Panthers don't have to deal with him anymore. And I think it was time after the, kind of toward the end of that season, this past season, he looked like he didn't have it anymore. I just didn't see it. Just watching him going, it's over. So I'm glad that he made that decision instead of trying to hang on one more year. He's going into the booth apparently with NBC. I'm not totally sold that he's going to be this unbelievable broadcaster from the get-go. We'll see. It's kind of a wait and see approach with him. Like Peyton Manning, oh my goodness, absolutely. Throw him in the booth. He's a superstar. He's already a superstar doing the ESPN Plus show. I'm not so sure on Drew Brees. I'll be curious to hear him. But he could be one of those guys that you think is great and maybe isn't that great. Like Dwayne Wade was filling in for Barkley during inside the NBA and the All-Star game. I'm not real big on Dwayne Wade as a broadcaster. Maybe it's just me, but you think he's going to be awesome and he's well spoken and all that, but I don't know. He's not my favorite personality on TV. So that's kind of how I feel Drew Brees is going to be. Am I wrong in thinking that, Henry? You think Brees will be all right?
I'm thinking he's going to be okay. He might not necessarily get it right away at first. Some guys are made to be on television, and then some guys are just made, just to interview, just to be an interview. Drew Brees in particular, he's always ready to talk. He was always the face of the New Orleans Saints, so he's already ready with a word per se. So it'll be interesting to see not just how he does on camera, but how he plays off all of the other players. If he plays off of Coach Tony Dungy, it's going to be interesting to see if he does Sunday Night Football. I would love to see him and Rodney Harrison on the same set and to see what a quarterback is looking at when he's looking at a guy like Rodney Harrison. But only time will tell. So I'm definitely interested in looking forward to seeing that.
Absolutely. So as we end things, the other big story, Aaron Jones signing with the Green Bay Packers. A little surprised by this. Very good running back to pay him $12 million a year. I'm on the side where you don't pay running backs. I want to get rookies, young guys, plug and play. To invest that much in running backs, it's tough for me. I don't think it's worth it. I just don't. So I would have rather Green Bay spent their money on adding another wide receiver. I think that would have been more beneficial. I think A.J. Dillon, he's worth giving a shot, putting him out there. He was a rookie last year for the Packers. So a little bit surprising on that one, but good for Aaron Jones. He's earned it in regards to how he's played. I just don't think when you're building a team, you build around a running back. And I'm thinking with the Panthers, paying McCaffrey as much as the Panthers have paid him, I just don't know if it's worth it. Now, McCaffrey and Aaron Jones are good out of the backfield, so they are weapons, as receivers. But man, it's tough. You get all that wrapped up in a running back, and they don't have long careers. They fade fast. Rookies can come in and do really well. So that would be the direction that I would normally go. All right, last thought. My upset pick on the bracket, I'm going Grand Canyon, Bryce Drew. I'll be pulling hard for my Mountaineers. I've got my App State yellow. I used to wear this in college. It still fits, still looks pretty good. This was my App game day. Well, up in Boone, it's freezing. So this was always underneath a sweater or a sweater vest. That was always my radio attire. I always dressed up and had a tie for the radio. I always had to dress up, look good for radio. I had a great face for radio, and here we are streaming on YouTube and Facebook for everybody to see my goofy face. But back then it was just radio, and this was the shirt I wore. So go Mountaineers. And I like Texas making a deep run, but I even though it's a boring pick, I've got Gonzaga winning it all. So I will stick with kind of the easy pick, but sometimes the easy pick is the right pick. So I don't know who the crazy team would be that would surprise everybody and win the whole thing. But I think I think it could be somebody that makes a deep run this year, a veteran-laden team that comes out of nowhere and surprises some people. So I can't wait to see it. I love March Madness. We got our new little marquee behind us, Unpack March Madness. They only gave us 2 A's, so we've got the @ symbol representing madness. But we've been working hard on the studio. We'd love to know some of your thoughts on the studio. What do people think of the studio? How's it turning out? I'm excited about it. We continue to tweak it. Some great work behind the camera from people. So we're thankful for them. Thank you to Henry for filling in for Luke today. Henry, we'll keep you a part of things, and so thankful for your contributions today. Great work. Even though we still couldn't figure out the graphics, we will work on that for next time. So no worries. You just wanted me to talk about Deshaun Watson and Carson Wentz, so you kept throwing that up there. So
we're going to put it into it. We're going to put it into existence. We're going to put it out in the atmosphere. We're going to put it into existence. My job, Bryce. Telling you, it's going to happen.
Great job. You did an awesome job, Henry. I appreciate it, man. I like giving you a hard time. Henry's a good guy, and thankful to have him a part of things. And so we will see you tonight at Trivia. And don't forget to get your bracket in, unpackingit.com/March. We will talk to you next Monday. We will recap the first, 4 days of madness next Monday, 10:30 a.m. Be sure to check out the Chris Broussard podcast. It was awesome. Recorded that on Friday. And then Clark Kellogg from CBS, he is scheduled for Thursday, right before the tournament starts. He will be with us on the Unpacking It podcast. And so you won't want to miss that. Hopefully that all comes together. So thanks so much for listening to the Unpacking It podcast live today. Thanks to everybody that listens to this later on the podcast. For Henry, I'm Bryce. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you next time right here on the Unpacking It Live podcast.